Days of mass killings in Syria, led by the new government, left at least more than 1,000 Alawites and Christian minority members dead and thousands of others fleeing.
The suffering is very high. It is a complete extermination of the Alawite Sect, of our brothers, the Christians, of our brothers, the Shiites.
Some survivors told us that many men were shot dead in front of their families.
Syria's military says the killing is over for now and calm seems to have returned.
Thank God, today life has returned and people have gone back to their homes. Everything is, thank God, perfectly fine.
Syria's new leader, Ahmed al-Shara, has called for a commission of inquiry and insists the massacres of mostly civilians were not acts of ethnic cleansing, but the crushing of rebel forces attacking the new government. While much of the world's media ignored these mass killings, Israel blasted the radical Islamists now in charge of Syria.
The international community must come to its sense about the regime in Damascus. It's actually about jihad. This is a massacre the whole world should condemn. This is what an ethnic cleansing really looked like.
Israeli forces struck dozens of Syrian military targets Monday night that could prove a threat to the Jewish state. IDF Chief of Staff Eyal Zamir toured the new buffer zone his troops have set up on Mount Hermon and Syrian territory around it. Israel warned Syria's new Islamist government to keep its forces away from Israel.
We are concerned about those jihadist monsters committing a massacre and ethnic cleansing of Jews and Druze within our borders. We will not allow the formation of jihadist threat on our borders with Syria.
But in a sign it's trying to at least appear more moderate, Syria's radical Islamist government signed a deal this week with leaders of the huge Syrian Kurds minority, which had been repressed by the former Assad regime.
The agreement marks a significant step towards unifying Syria, putting an end to the country's 14 years of fracture.
Kurds and their allies are celebrating.
All the people are happy, and they're all one hand. Kurds, Christians, Assyrians, and all other sects. We are all brothers in one country.
Meanwhile, in Qatar, President Trump's Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff is pushing to extend the ceasefire in Gaza another 60 days, with Hamas immediately releasing 10 of the more than 20 hostages who remain alive. But Hamas is pushing back, still insisting on negotiations to end the war permanently, with the terror group apparently still armed and in charge of Gaza. Witkoff and Israel both insist Hamas has to give up its civilian and military power there for the war to end. Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
And our CBN Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell joins us now from Jerusalem. So, Chris, what more have we learned about the massacre in Syria, and what do we know about what really happened?
Well, we know we're still getting some horrific scenes of slaughter of the Alawites and some Christians as well. Some people estimate more than 10,000 have actually been slaughtered in the last week or so. Videos encouraging killing on sight of any of these Alawite families or members. The Alma Center, which is in northern Israel right now, has done a research on this, and Iran may have actually encouraged some of the Alawites to attack some members of the regime, and they believe this could be retribution on the Alawites for years of the Assad regime that really had put persecution on many of the Sunni members of Israel. But certainly this commission of inquiry that Julie talked about in her story, we wonder, some people speculate, could this be burying the story and just sort of putting a sort of a facade on what really happened and whether or not how much of the regime knew about what happened. It just was horrific scenes for the last week or so. Hopefully it'll be over, but just a horrific time here in the Middle East, and with really ethnic cleansing, as Deputy Foreign Minister Sharon Haskell said.
What more can you tell us about the measures Israel has taken to protect itself from attacks by forces in Syria?
Well, Ephraim, from the very beginning, when HTS, the regime by al-Shahara, took over, they had been preparing and taking over land not only on the Syrian-Israeli border, but regular bombardment of the Syrian military. They say they can't allow it to fall into the hands of the new regime. They understand there's no hiding from the Israeli point of view that what this represents. The Israeli Air Force has been attacking military sites, military headquarters, and especially weapons in southern Syria. They're targeting radar system, detection equipment, which all could be used to build up an aerial intelligence picture for the new regime. They consider this to be a threat to the state of Israel and any IDF operation. So they're doing what they can to convey a strong message, Ephraim, to the new regime, and will not the Sunni rebel organization HTS to establish itself on the Syrian outposts or to build even new ones in southern Syria.
Chris, what about this new deal between the new regime in Syria and Kurds? Is this new leader trying to remove fears about his ties to terrorism in the past?
Well, that's what some people are concerned about. Actually, this deal, this agreement took some people by surprise, and it's important to understand, Ephraim, what is going on in northeast Syria and what has happened in the last 14 years or so. And what happened was that during the Syrian civil war, the Assad regime pulled out of that part of Syria, and what replaced it was actually one of the bright spots in the whole Middle East. It was a governance really that was democratic and involved all of the ethnic groups there in that area: the Kurds, the Christians, Arabs, and Muslims. It really had become a bright spot. Now this deal, which actually has been approved by the United States, the UK, Germany, and France, apparently is incorporating northeast Syria into the new regime. Some people are concerned maybe they were going to lose autonomy, and would it kind of put a facade over al-Jilani's pass? But it really marks a significant step with the idea of trying to have a more unified and inclusive Syria. We'll see what happens, Ephraim. It won't be implemented until the end of 2025, and each party could withdraw if necessary.
Let's shift the conversation now to Israel and the hostage deal. What's the latest?
Well, as Julie said in her report, Steve Witkoff is going to Doha in Qatar, and it's the latest round of negotiations. The idea would have 10 more hostages for a 60-day ceasefire. We know at least right now there's 24 hostages that still remain alive, 35 that are still in Hamas control, we presume are confirmed dead. So that's what's happening right now. We'll see what happens with these negotiations that are going on. A lot of hope and prayers here in Israel that at least more alive hostages could be released. And really, it's been gut-wrenching over the last 6 weeks or so during these week-by-week hostage release, and especially with the Bibas family returned dead. It's been a gut-wrenching, emotional time for all of Israel.
Are people in Gaza wanting to get out?
Believe it or not, they do. And there's a number of videos on X saying people are fed up. There's no life left in Gaza. They say, let us go. They're very disappointed in the Arab League that really didn't come up with a solution for Gaza. And despite what Hamas may be saying, many people are fed up with the terror organization. They want a better life somewhere else.
One last question. The UN Security Council is holding a closed-door meeting on Iran's nuclear program, and President Trump is offering to negotiate with Iran, saying it's either that or there could be a military strike. He says time is running out. Is there an expectation in Israel of a potential attack on Iran?
I think there's very much of an expectation of this possibility. Trump is offering to negotiate, but I think when the negotiations are over, which Iran seems to have rejected already, a U.S.-Israeli exercise strike could be possible and maybe even likely.
All right, our CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell, thank you as always for your insights. Good to have you back. We look forward to hearing from you in the days ahead.